All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Daniel Sines, Business Development Officer at the Los Angeles Police Federal Credit Union. Thank you for joining us for the ID Theft and Fraud Prevention webinar. Just wanted to let you guys know that this is a live webinar and is interactive and will be open for questions at the end of the presentation. This evening presenters are Lauren Fine, our own in-house fraud specialist here at LAPFCU, and Detective Ward from LAPD's Commercial Crimes Division, Valley Financial Section. Today's agenda will include defining identity theft, describing different types of fraud, beware of scams, and tips to prevent, protect, minimize the risk of becoming a victim of identity theft. And at this time, I'd like to pass the baton over to Detective Ward.
Good evening. Thank you for joining. I'm here to hopefully give some information about identity theft and fraud and how the police department can help you if needed from these instances. Basically, as it says here, an unauthorized use of a person's private identifying information for financial gain to obtain the goods, money, or services is what we're looking at for identity theft. And private identifying information is pretty broadly defined in the penal code, so it doesn't have to be just your social security number. It can be a piece of mail that contains your name and address or an account number, phone number, PIN number. There's a long list in Penal Code 530.5 of what those things can be, and it really is just about anything that can be used by somebody unlawfully to try to pose as you or use your account information. So identity theft is also usually for financial gain. The way that we look at it is not just imposter of a person for other purposes, but really to get a hold of money or goods by using your information. So that's what we focus on for the investigation of identity theft. The types that we see, there's a list that could go on and on and on, but obviously I think that the number one thing people worry about is someone getting a hold of your social security number. You should be worried. Do not carry your social security card or any other items that have your social security number on it, because it definitely is the number one way to gain access to your accounts. Also, any type of financial account information is at the top of the list for vulnerability, because it can be used very readily to access your accounts, especially if you keep your PIN number near your account number. So that's a big no-no as well. Never put your PIN number written or on a sticker on the back of your card or near your card or near any other piece of paper that has your account information on it. Healthcare records often have your address and partial social security number on it, as well as insurance. Your driver's license, if that gets lost or stolen, you definitely want to make a report about that, because it can be used at a bank or other location to either access accounts or make purchases. And really looking out for for a child's identity being protected is important these days, because we're not necessarily running, you're not always looking at their credit checks and things like that, but sure enough, as soon as we are born, we have a social security number assigned and it can be used. So those are all things to be aware of. Also, email is one of the biggest vulnerabilities that we have. Having a very strong password on all of your accounts, but especially your email, is advised. And if you suspect that anything seems off or that something may have been accessed, first thing you want to do is go ahead and change your email password, because once somebody gets into there, they have access to look into and find a lot of information about you inside your email. So changing your password is an easy way to cut that off, and then start changing your passwords on other accounts if needed. Mobile phones has been a trend lately, especially we've been having a trend with T-Mobile phones being accessed the SIM card switches, things like that. So if you think that the compromise in your identity has been via your mobile phone or a SIM card switch, then you'll want to report that to the police and also to the cell phone company as well. And then social media, not only can people guess your password and get into your social media to access it, but also they use it as a phishing location, just like they can fish for information from your email, because we post a lot of stuff on social media that can be used to glean information about us. So be aware of what you post and how you post it, because anyone who is if you have a public social media page, that information can be looked at by criminals to try to get password information. You have your names of your children or relatives, things that are commonly used as either passwords or security questions, things like that. Just be aware that posting very personal information like that can be used by criminals for identity theft. I think check fraud is something that all of us need to learn more about, because it has definitely risen to the top in terms of what we're seeing with bank account security issues. Checks that are, written on paper checks that we pass or mail or use in person rather than a digital version, they contain a routing number and account number that is specific to your account, and if it gets into the wrong hands, a check that's been written by you or a stolen check of any kind can be used by criminals to make transactions with it. Also, it used to kind of be that they'd have to get the paper check and wash it, either using a substance that washes the written information off and then rewriting their information. Nowadays, checks can be readily printed. So if one check gets into the wrong hands by someone, they can take the routing information and account for more checks. So that's what we're seeing happen more commonly than wash checks. So the take-home message of that is that checks are so vulnerable that you really need to start thinking about ways that you can reduce your usage of checks, especially if they have to travel in the mail system. So unless you're handing it directly to someone that you know is going to protect the security of that check, deposit it and destroy it, or mobile deposit and destroy it, or deposit it at a bank where it won't get into the wrong hands, you should think about using other types of methods of payment. For instance, the online banking with the credit union is a great way to bypass writing checks. I use it myself. It's a great, easy, user-friendly system, and I don't have the fear that my checks are being sent out everywhere to be compromised in the mail system or once they reach their destination. So stolen checks are a huge part of the number of investigations we're dealing with right now, and you need to be aware of how vulnerable they are. And then, of course, credit and debit card fraud are very common, because not only can cards be often stolen many times out of vehicles, or lost wallet full of cards becomes easily usable to somebody who finds it, but also cards can be produced by criminals using skimmers or other ways of using the magnetic strip information that's on your card and then creating a fraudulent card. So they're walking around with a card that actually has your card information on their card. So there's a couple different ways it can happen. Either they just steal the card and use it, or find a lost card and use it as is. Oftentimes, if your cards are kept right there with your ID and it's all stolen or lost together, then they've got an ID and a card, and as long as they find someone who looks reasonably like you, then that becomes usable. Or they're getting the information off your card from a reader or a skimmer, often that are found at a gas station or an ATM. and then using the encoded information to put that onto a card and use it, which does the same thing as using your card, right? It's going to either withdraw funds from your bank account or put charges on your credit card, depending on whether it's debit or a credit. So just be aware that, those cards are also very vulnerable. Anything you can do to keep them safe, and if they're lost or stolen, you need to, cancel them right away. One tip I have is that if you can use the apps for all the credit cards and debit cards that you have right there on your phone, then you can check your balances and your transactions every day at your fingertips really quickly and know if there's any fraudulent charges on there that you don't recognize. So I highly recommend downloading those apps and using them and getting very familiar with them. And if they give you the option of alerting you whenever there's a charge over a certain amount or out of your area, go ahead and you have to sign up for those features a lot of times. It's not just automatic. So look into those apps and find out how you can get alerts to your phone when the card is used. I mean, some of them you can alert every single time the card is used, and then it's always there, telling you when the card gets used. So, and then of course there's been many breaches that are in the media where they find out, oh, everyone who has a certain type of card or has used it at this store, your information has been leaked, right? And the dark web is full of leaked information and stolen information from these breaches. And again, once someone has your account number, they can even get your PIN number from these breaches. You may see fraudulent charges pop up, and the app is the best way to see that, or logging in online at the minimum to see when those charges occur, not waiting for a paper statement at the end of the month. And if you can do away with paper statements altogether, again, that's one less opportunity for a criminal to intercept your account information, because mail theft, which we'll get to, is also very prevalent. And then EDD scams are the unemployment scams. So EDD fraud has been on the rise ever since COVID began, and the rules and regulations and policies for applying for EDD changed enough so that people, unfortunately, criminals realize that, okay, we can apply more readily for EDD without as many checks and balances. And unfortunately, what that meant was that these identity theft suspects got their hands on profiles. Once they have a name and a social security number, they can apply for unemployment benefits in a victim's name. And what that means is that the victim at some point finds out that somebody has applied and gained unemployment benefits under their name without their permission, or obviously without their approval and without it being them. So this type of crime has been rampant. There are investigators all over the country, but for the California EDD program, we have investigators that are trying to investigate these cases and crack down on it from happening. They've made some changes to the system, which has slowed it down a little bit, but what you should know is that if you receive paperwork, now that it's tax time, that shows that there's a 1099, that unemployment has been distributed in your name and it wasn't you that applied for it, then there is a link that you can go to on the IRS to do that, to go through the process of reporting to them that this wasn't you, that somebody applied for unemployment in your name, and you need to get a corrected 1099 to do your taxes. So that system's in place. You also need to report it to unemployment, and you also have to report it to NCDF, the National Center for Disaster Fraud, which is taking reports for this type of fraud. So if you think you've been a victim, or you found out throughout the last year that you are a victim of this type of fraud, those are the things to do. And the only way to really counteract that is to be watching for paperwork that might come in the mail. That would be really the main way that you'd be tipped off that somebody has done this type of fraud. So those would be the warning signs for that. So I think, Lauren, are you going to go over some of the scams that are popular or that, trend for the credit union?
Yes, so I can speak upon some of the scams that unfortunately our members have uh, been victims of. Some of them displayed here. Job scams have been really big, whether it's through emails or phone calls. People looking for jobs and think they're involved in a job thing. They're sent a check or told to go make purchases. Mystery shopper jobs, a lot of those, we're seeing a lot of people falling for those scams. So being careful with those. Um, as shown here, all the social media outlets, there's scams on there all the time. As far as people reaching out to you, if it's someone you don't know, and saying, oh, I can send you money, or I'm going to send you a check. Sometimes members get checks in the via email and say, deposit this check, and oh, actually, can you pass on some of the money? Things like that. So here's just kind of a list of some of the scams that there are, and we'll kind of go into more detail in the next slides. So as mentioned with phone calls, being careful, people may get calls from someone claiming to be IRS or Social Security Administration or other government agencies saying you owe them money, or it's some recording saying, people have been told to buy gift cards in this means, or you're going to be arrested, saying you have back taxes and you owe money. And so they're not going to be reaching out to you by phone like that. There's not going to be an agent reaching out saying they're from the IRS. Those are not legitimate. They'll usually contact you by mail. But on those calls, don't give out personal information, even if they ask for it. And then same with Social Security Administration. You can verify with your local Social Security office before talking to anybody about it. And then there's also lottery. You may get a call, you won something, but you're required to make a payment in order to receive it. So they'll ask for payment over the phone, or tell you again to go buy gift cards. Any of those means are definitely not legitimate and not advised to be going through with. We've actually been seeing a lot of members having issues with either getting a phone call or an email from a virus protection company, places like Norton or McAfee, or any of those well-known virus protection for your computer, calling you saying either your computer is infected or saying that you signed up for a service and now we're going to charge you, and to call this number or click on this link if you wish to not be charged. And so people are doing that, and if you click on the link or you call the number, they may give you a link to go to, and it allows them remote access to your computer, and they tell you log into your bank account. So they can sit there and watch you log into your bank account, and they can gain access to your account. And what we've seen is what they'll do is they'll tell you, okay, put in $400, let's say, is how much they need to refund you. So what they'll do is they may accidentally put 40,000, and depending what's in your account, they may take from your S1 savings and transfer it to your S8 checking, let's say. And without it, they may just show it on the screen or get you to believe that, oh, we accidentally deposited $40,000, not 400. You need to hurry up and send the money back. Otherwise, I'm either going to lose my job, or they give various reasons that get you to act quickly. Then people either are told to send wires out or go buy gift cards. Any way to get someone to give up their money or give up access. We've even had some members have issues where they are threatened with not having access to their computer anymore. We actually had, I know of for sure one member that had all his stuff on his computer compromised because he wouldn't send the money. unfortunately, yeah, he's having to work with someone to get access to his computer now, but he refused to send the money, which was a good move to do, because they're going to continue to ask for money once you do it. So those are some things to be on the lookout for with phone calls. And then online and emails, same thing. Any links that you get or emails for something. We've had members that are selling things online on different apps. They get, someone telling you, okay, I'll buy your furniture, let's say, but I'm going to send you extra money for the movers to have it shipped to where I'm at. So they'll send them a, check for $5,000 when the furniture is only $2,000, and say, okay, the rest is to pay the movers. So deposit the check and then send the money to, Bob Smith, and he's going to be the mover. And they do that. And unfortunately, the check comes back as a counterfeit or fake check. And if you've already sent the money, then you're left hanging with that much less money in your account, or you're overdrawn in your account. We talked about some of the job scams, but anything asking you to purchase items for that job. Even if they give you a check up front, usually that's a warning sign that it may not be a legitimate job. And then emails, watching any emails that's not from a familiar person, or even if it is, your family member or someone who sends you an email often, their emails could have been hacked, and you're sent an email that you think is them, and it may come from their email, but it may not be them, and it's telling you to click on a link. Being very careful with those links, because it could give the suspects access to your computer. And then once they get access, they can get access to anything you log into and watch you log into bank accounts or anything else. Social media, as mentioned, same thing. People can be reaching out to you, whatever social media platform you're on, private messages, sending you saying either, oh, can you help me transfer funds to someone? I lost access to my bank account, or purchase gift cards for me. We've seen different variations, sometimes romance scams saying, hey, I'm just gonna, as a companion, I wanna give you an allowance of $500 a month, but here I'm gonna have somebody send you a check. We've had cases of that with our members. And also just not providing your username or password for your account. People may think that that's, harmless information. It's not my social security number, but it is access to your whole bank account. Once they get access to that, they can start depositing bad checks. They can start withdrawing money. They can set up transfers to get your account cleaned out pretty quickly. So you do want to avoid giving out that type of information. And Detective Board, I don't know if there's anything you want to touch upon with this as well.
Yeah, one thing with social, yeah, thank you. Great, great information. And another thing on social media, unlike some of these other phishing attempts, I mean, it can be an email as well, but big one on social media is to get a message from someone you do know and are, friends with, that has a link and even looks just fun or whatever, check this out with a link. And then turns out that that person's account got hacked. And so that it looks like it's coming from a known person that you would normally, oh, sure, yeah, I'll, click that link and see what they're sending me. I'll caution you now, and any link should be questioned at this point. It's a bummer to say it, but even if it's a family member or a friend, it doesn't take that long to text them at a known number, call them at a known number. Hey, did you really send this? And probably 99 times out of 100, it's no, I didn't send you anything. Somebody must have gotten into my account. So any texted emails or social media sent messages that contain a link that you click, it should be questioned. And a lot of times they're pretty darn sophisticated in terms of how they come out. It comes across sounding exactly like something your friend would say, or it comes from something that looks very much like a real Apple email or text, and it even has a family member's name included in it that says, you know, your kid's name that has just spent this much money at iTunes, click to verify or whatever, and you're thinking, oh, I want to make sure what they're spending, and you click it without thinking, and then it just leads you into the risk of either giving up information or them getting into your phone or computer. So links are just inherently dangerous. So unless you've confirmed or you know that you're expecting a link from some company or from some person, just don't click those links, because they lead to more trouble than they're worth without verifying those. All right, so in terms of preventing identity theft, definitely education is the number one first line of defense against identity theft. Knowing what these red flags are that Lauren and I are going over, knowing what to look for, that's the number one thing. Because we all have to continue using our bank accounts, and sometimes we have to use a check, or we use email and social media. You just have to know what you're looking for. These tips that are here on this page, like do not put outgoing bills in your outgoing mail, that's huge. It's setting a check in a mailbox, you know, unfortunately gone are those days that is okay to do. It's just a red flag for an identity thief to come by and you know, come check that out, come get that and use it. So even when you go to the post office, the advice that the post office is giving these days is walk inside if you have a check or any other identifiable, you know, personal identifying information that you're mailing, other than just, you know, you may not care if it's just a fun card you're sending somebody, but if it contains anything with personal identifying information, the post office is advising that you walk to the inside of the post office rather than placing it in the outdoor mailboxes. And that's because those are not impenetrable. In fact, it's very common that those blue boxes are getting, you know, overnight or even during broad daylight, people that are getting stuff out of those boxes, and they know how to do that. And because it's valuable to them. To identity thieves, a piece of mail is money to them because it can be used in so many ways. They just sift through it, get the information they can use off of it, and it's money on the streets. So those are just some tips on the actual postal, you know, system, that it's a vulnerable system. You have to know how to safely do that. And again, using services like the bill pay online bypasses the need to mail a check completely. So just a great way to do it. Or setting up payments through your credit card apps where the money goes straight from your account into, you know, to pay your credit cards or your insurance or your any bills at all. You usually have a system where you can put an online payment through. Highly recommend using that. You're very, very protected from that ever being compromised. And if it is, you're very protected to get that money back because you're using a secure system. So, whereas a check, once it's gone, it's compromised, and it could be a mess to clean that up. And then I mentioned monitoring. Monitor your bank and credit card accounts on a regular basis. I mean, the apps make it very, very easy to just click through them and see if there's anything you don't recognize, any charges that you don't recognize. Question them, look at it, you know, make sure your balances are what you think they are. That way you find out immediately if a fraudulent charge goes through, not at the end of the month when by then it might have already racked up to be a lot of money and a lot of issues. So you find out immediately, you report it immediately to the bank or credit card, and they're much more likely to be able to refund you that money more quickly if you report it right away. And they'll investigate it more quickly too, to see, hey, how did this happen? How did this fraudulent charge occur? Avoiding the paper checks and credit card paper statements is a huge mail theft issue, because again, you know, there's stories of people just following the mail trucks around, or reaching into mailboxes, you know, one after another down a street to just grab mail. So, I mean, I know I've had a locking mailbox installed in place of my regular old, used to just open it right up mailbox, and now I need a key to get in there, and it's, you know, a metal secure box. If you can't do that where you live, you think about getting a P.O. box where it's secure. I mean, it's that serious, because once your mail gets taken, it's just very, very usable to criminals who know what to do with it, to sift through it, find account numbers and things like that, especially at this time of year when everyone's sending out tax forms and 1099s and things that have your personal information on it. This is like a heightened time for that. All right, so next steps for, you know, what do you do? What do you do once you find out, man, something happened, I am a victim of identity theft in some way, shape, or form? Definitely file a police report with your local police department, which means, you know, if you live in LA, you can go to any LAPD office. If you live in Simi Valley, go there. You don't have to figure out where it happened. You just go to your local police station wherever you live, make a police report. Or even more convenient, LAPD has an online reporting system now for identity theft. You go to the website lapdonline.org, and you are able to make a number of different police reports now online. Identity theft is one of them. So go ahead and check that out. If you live in another agency's jurisdiction, chances are they have this as well. Makes it a lot easier than driving down to your police station, especially when things weren't fully opened and things like that. And then right away, you want to reset your passwords. Start with your email, and then go through all your account passwords and things like that. And your passwords need to be, you know, difficult passwords that are not easily guessed by either a person or a you know, computer guessing system that can be used. So it shouldn't contain all real words. It should have a combination of numbers and letters and symbols and things like that that are harder for people and machines to guess. And then getting a free credit report every year, highly recommended, doesn't cost anything, and it shows you if anything fraudulent appears, that if somebody has, you know, tried to buy a car in your name, take out a loan in your name, open a credit card in your name, this is how you find out. The credit bureaus that are listed here are the 3 credit bureaus that we all have, and they all have apps. The Experian app, for one, I know is very user-friendly and can be set up so that it does give you alerts anytime something is accessed on your credit. So it'll tell you if somebody tries to open a credit card, tries to take out a loan, tries to use your social security number for any of those financial type transactions. And it works. I mean, when you're, you know, you can test it yourself by signing up and then watching. It's going to alert you as you're doing things almost in real time. Also, those credit bureaus can be frozen. There's a process to it, and it takes some time, but if you've been an identity theft victim in the past, it is highly recommended that you go through the process to freeze those credit bureaus for your name and social security number. And it has changed over the years. At the moment, it does not cost you anything to do that if you've been an identity theft victim. You just go on there. The best way to go about this is to go to the website identitytheft.gov. Identitytheft.gov is a website put on through the Federal Trade Commission, and it does walk you through the process of how to freeze your credit with these 3 credit bureaus if you've been an identity theft victim, and it has recovery steps of what to do if you've been a victim of identity theft that are very, very easy to follow and walk through. I recommend that for anyone who's had any identity theft issues whatsoever.
And I'll talk about LAPFCU provides, we have a third-party service we have joined together with called CyberScout, and it's free identity theft resolution support. So they help you through the process of clearing up anything, maybe you had a loan open fraudulently on your credit report, you can call us and we can put you in touch with the CyberScout Services. And it's a free service as a member, and they help you through the process. There is a long process to get it removed, working with the credit bureaus, and then they have to work with that lender, and they have you file a police report, but they have everything set up and they tell you each step and they work with you and they have your case and they do the step-by-step process. So it is a very helpful service that we can help put you in touch with. So you can just call our main number, LAPFCU, and then we will put you in touch with their service. Or you can look on our website and check out theirs of cyberscout.com as well. So some of the things also is we have monitoring service with it as well. It's a paid service, but we do have special pricing for it. But they will give you alerts for potential fraud or identity theft activity. They will give you credit scores, reports. They monitor for change of address. So someone may change your address and you not realize it. So they'll give you alerts for those types of things. And it's a very helpful service that just helps you monitor it. And, you can kind of sit back and wait for those alerts, but also just still being proactive yourself and monitoring yourself. But this is just an extra safeguard as well. But you can also check out our website. We do have more security tips and articles on there. There's a security part of our website under lapfcu.org. So it's a good spot to check out. We do post new trends that are coming, that we're seeing, and different things to look out for. And as we kind of talked about, just looking out for things. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. So just kind of listen to your gut. Something may seem too good to be true, and it probably is. Especially nowadays, there is a lot going on. Just taking that extra moment to think about it. Don't let anyone rush you into anything, because that's how they're going to get you in the end. Is with the scams, is rushing you into it, making you feel like it's urgent or you have to go through with it now. So those are some things to think about anytime you get into a situation that just you feel uneasy about or just doesn't seem right. Just take that moment to think about it or contact someone. You can even call us at the credit union if it's something to do with your account, and we can talk you through it and hopefully avoid being a victim of a scam.
I really like that advice. I think having a trusted person at the ready that isn't going to make you feel silly, but you're like, hey, if I ever, ahead of time, tell somebody, if I ever get a call or an email or a text that I want to ask, I'm going to call you and ask you. And usually with one other person looking and scoping it out or even Googling, what is this? Is it a known scam? You'll make a lot better decisions. So have that person ready now, because you're going to get these texts and emails or a situation where you're going to question it. And I think it's a really, really good plan to have a trusted person that you're going to call. And then you can laugh about it later. How silly was that they said this, that, or the other? But you would be amazed that, people that you would not think are going to fall for something, it's done in just the right way where it feels, someone is made to feel like they have to make a quick decision, or they've done their research and they're making it sound very, very tailored to what that person is going to believe at the time. And it's amazing what, you look back and go, how did I fall for that? But it is that easy. So have a person exactly like she described there that you can just call and bounce an idea off of. If it's the bank itself, that's great, but you want to have someone at night or in the morning or on the weekends that you can just get a hold of real quick if you get something that is making you think this doesn't seem quite right. I'm going to run this by, whoever it is and ask them if they think this is real or if they think this is a good idea. Yeah, so that's a really good advice.
And this concludes the presentation portion of the webinar. We're going to now open up the floor to questions. So if you take a look at the right side of your screen there, you're going to see a Q&A section. Go ahead and type your question in there, and I'll go ahead and read these out loud and have the panelists answer them. Question there already is in regards to the skimming devices. How do you know if there's a skimming device at a particular location?
Yeah, great question. The true answer is they've gotten so sophisticated and tiny and hard to detect that you really may not know. So the tips that I can give you, it still does hold true that you may want to try to manipulate the card insert portion to make sure it's not like weird and flimsy and going to pop right off or something. That's fine. Go ahead, and that's been a recommendation for several years now, is to just make sure that there's not like an overlay over the card reader that just pops right off if you kind of test it a little bit. So that's still something you can do. You can also kind of look inside there to see, you know, if anything's visible. But the truth is, the card readers, the skimmers that are being used right now are pretty sophisticated, so you may not know. You can also, when you're at the gas pump, use the ones that are closest to the attendant's window or the front or the lit portion, because it's just a little bit less likely that that's the one that'll be tampered with because it's so visible. So that's still good advice as well. But try to stick with locations that you're familiar with when you're using your ATM card or credit card at a gas station. But try to stick with known locations as much as possible. I mean, I have trimmed down where I get gas to basically 2 locations, because, you know, you just kind of find out that these things are everywhere. They're just way too easily implemented. So yeah, that's a kind of the long answer to say that you really won't know necessarily. But once you find a fraudulent charge on a card, and that's a really good time to think back to, wait, where did I use this card? And it definitely is worthwhile to alert a location if you think that's where your card was compromised, because they can begin an investigation that may help a lot of other people that got compromised at the same location. So,
Thank you. Do you recommend we freeze accounts, credit accounts, even if you have not been a victim of identity theft?
that it's a question that has to do with the answer to that has to do with where you're at in your financial happenings, because if you are no time in the near future going to need to open another credit card or go through a refinance or a loan application, that kind of thing, then the answer is probably yeah, go ahead and freeze them and protect yourself. You will be given PIN numbers for each of them, so you can unfreeze them. It's not permanent. But if you're maybe almost about to start a refinance, or you know, you're house shopping and there's loan stuff going on, then it's probably not the time to go ahead and freeze your credit, because it's going to need to be accessible during that period of time. So it just depends on where you're at with the financial stuff going on in your world right now. But again, if you really aren't planning on doing any credit applications or loan applications in the near future, then it will not hurt you to do that, to go through the steps of doing that.
Thank you. Should you request a credit report in addition to checking credit at LAPFCU?
Yes. Yeah. Get your free credit report. Your credit report is extensive, the one that you get every year. And here's another tip. You get one free credit report from each credit bureau annually. So if you think about it, you can split the year, and they all overlap almost completely. Not completely, but almost completely. So if you think about it, you could divide the year up, and every 4 months, you could set an alarm on your phone to request one of the 3 credit bureaus' free credit reports. That's just a little tactic where you actually will get 3 free credit reports at different times throughout the year. So, because you request them each individually. So there's just a little you know, if you're really on top of it and you really want a full picture throughout the year of what your credit report looks like, that's one way you can do it.
Okay. Is there more risk in tapping your card over swiping your card?
I think there is that tapping is going to be the least risk because there is a lower risk of a skimming device being activated when you insert your card into the machine. Then the skimming device could be reading the magnetic strip on your card, but the tap is a digital read, and there's very few instances of that being compromised at this time.
What do you think about the app called Truebill? It asks you to connect with your banking institution and tracks your accounts and assists you with your spending, and then recommends things that you may not need anymore.
You know, I've only recently looked into this app myself because I think it's like gaining some popularity, but I don't know enough about it to really comment on whether I would recommend it or not. I don't really have an opinion or know how much it's accessing for it to be. I don't know if you're asking if it's like vulnerable to being compromised or something, since it has kind of a link to all of your accounts. I'm not sure. Lauren, do you have any further information on that particular app?
Not that particular one. I haven't heard too much about that one myself either. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't speak to that either.
If I run my credit just to check for fraud, will this affect my credit rating?
Running your annual free credit report does not affect your credit rating.
Would you say it's a good idea to change passwords for frequently used accounts? Also, what about canceling access to various accounts you no longer use?
Yes, those are both recommended. So if you, well, it depends. So accounts you no longer use, I'm assuming you mean like maybe money's just sitting somewhere and it's just like you don't look at it very often. That can be a huge target, unfortunately, for identity theft, because a lot of times what you'll see with identity theft, either hacking or account access cases, is that they'll do a little bit first to kind of test, is this person paying attention? Are they noticing that money's leaving the account? And then they'll just go for it and start draining the account out. And then it's like, oh, cool, nobody's, you know, stopping it. Nobody's making any changes, so they just kind of keep going with it. So unwatched accounts are dangerous because of that. You know, we see a lot of cases come in where they're like, I hadn't checked on this report since I haven't checked on this account since last year, and then all of a sudden it's empty. So that's risky. Having a strong password on an account like that is important, and checking the transactions and the balances on the accounts. So you may have to set an alarm for an account like that. If you don't have an app that can check it on a regular basis, you might want to set a reminder on your phone or your Alexa or whatever you use that's like going to remind you to check on those stagnant accounts that are just kind of sitting there that you're not as aware of as your everyday accounts that you're using. In terms of changing passwords, it is recommended to an extent. I mean, there's a trade-off, right? If you change your password and you forget them a lot, it could be a pain. But if you're changing your password and keeping track, or, you know, keeping up with difficult passwords, or the number one thing that cyber crimes investigators have recommended to people is using a passphrase, even above a password, and just kind of having like a long extended password as a difficult password for your accounts. And yeah, changing it is not a bad idea, because you don't want someone to continue getting access to that if it has been compromised in a breach or however. And then making sure that you don't have same passwords for different accounts. That's a huge one, because what you're doing with that is you're saying, oh, well, all you have to do is figure out one, and you can access all of my accounts, all of my money, and all my different places, and my email, and my, you know, you can order on my Uber Eats or whatever it is that you use all these same account passwords for, they suddenly have access to everything rather than it just being one thing to deal with. So I'd say different passwords are even more important than changing passwords frequently.
What about having credit cards that are not being used, but you have an online account set up for it? Is it safe to have those online accounts open and available?
I would say so. Yeah, as long as you can check them readily on your app, then that's your safety net right there, is that you can see the transactions daily, weekly, whatever you choose to check on it. I've had credit cards that are my, standby, really don't need them credit cards. I know that closing credit cards can lower your credit score, so some people don't want to close the card. They just hang on to them, and that's fine, I think, as long as you have the app on your phone or you have a login that you can do weekly on your computer and you're checking it to make sure there's no fraudulent charges.
Great. If you bought a home less than a year ago, when they run your credit, does that count as a free credit report when the lender is the one running the credit?
My understanding is that only you yourself can run your free annual credit report. So if it's being run for the purposes of a loan, which is what that sounds like, then it's going to be at least a soft, if not a hard inquiry on your credit report. And those do affect your credit score somewhat. Whereas you yourself running your annual credit report does not affect your credit score.
Okay. All right. Actually, I think I have something in the chat here. Give me a second. Does using Apple Pay provide any ID protection?
I think so. Apple Pay, you're using your phone, so your security is only as secure as your phone is. And so there's another whole thing, right? Is that too many people have their password to open their phone as 12345, or I have a lot of cases where a phone gets stolen with a wallet, like out of a car, for instance, where you leave both of them in the car to run in somewhere. If they have your phone and your ID and your password to your phone is your birthday, then they're going to figure out how to get into your phone. So anything like Apple Pay or Google Pay, things that can be done from your phone, is only as secure as it is to get into your phone. So as long as you have a difficult password to get into your phone or a biometric to get into your phone, like it has to be your face or your thumbprint or a difficult password or passcode, then you're relatively safe, because as soon as you notice that your phone has gone missing, you can lock the phone and render it unusable to whoever has it. But if somebody can get it quickly and then get into it quickly because you have an easy password, then they're going to have access to, possibly have access to, things like your Apple Pay and things like that. Now, not only should you have a difficult password to get into your phone itself, but on any app that uses any financial application like Venmo, bank accounts, Apple Pay, you need to set it up so that each of those individual apps also needs a passcode or a biometric to work. And that's something you have to set up generally. So in other words, if you just download Venmo and don't change any of the settings, then all you have to do is have your phone open and you can access your accounts through Venmo. If you go into settings on Venmo and say, don't let it, no transactions can happen unless I put a 4-digit PIN in, now you've protected the actual Venmo app against being used while your phone is open. So there's layers of protection there. So I would say, I use Apple Pay. I think it is a secure way to do it, but it's because I trust that I have a difficult password on my phone and I have extra, passwords on my individual apps, so that it's, I feel relatively comfortable that someone can't get easily into my phone.
Great. Should I be concerned if I'm receiving offers with my late husband's name on them?
Not just necessarily, not inherently. I think that could be just a matter of, marketing lists are going to have names and addresses for years and years and years to come, and they're just going to use those lists to send out whatever their marketing paperwork is. So that doesn't necessarily mean something is askew. It just means that there's lists out there that have that name and address on them, and so they're trying to target, that person. I think unless it's a little more directed, like, oh, there's a problem with his account, and you need to call in, then you maybe would question it a little more. But if it really appears that they're just marketing to a name and an address that they have on a list somewhere, on a file somewhere, I wouldn't be too concerned with that.
All right. So it looks like there's no more questions. Let's see here. What about robocalls? So is there anything to be concerned about with robocalls?
I mean, I'd say the easy answer is just don't pick up, don't engage, never call back an unknown number. A lot of that, like Amazon scams and package scams and things like that, are asking you to call this number, and you kind of want to see, oh, is it mine? It's not. I mean, basically, don't engage with anything that you don't initiate. If you want to know, hey, I want to know where my package is, or I want to know what the account status is, you can look up a known email or phone number from something like a secure website that you're either already familiar with, or a paper statement that came from that company, and engage with them that way. So in other words, never call based on something you're being told. Like, you get a phone call, you need to, email this or call this number to check on your account. No, you call with the number that you already know and feel safe with. Yeah, hopefully that kind of answers that question.
Perfect. Okay. If my credit score changed a lot in 1 month, how can I check to see what happened?
I personally, I would go on one of the apps, like the Experian app or one of the other credit bureau apps. It'll say exactly how and why your score changed. Lays it all
Is
out.
there a way to protect your Gmail account if someone gets into your phone?
Strong password, and change email passwords. Do not let the same email password linger for too long.
We're going to call this our speed round as we reach the 7 o'clock mark in a couple minutes. What tips against fraud what tips against fraud can you suggest for international travel?
Oh, okay. I mean, so for international travel, be aware of the phone that you're using. Credit cards are generally safe overseas and internationally because, you have to read up on each policy, but there are some protections that you have while traveling. I don't know, Lauren, do you have any specific bank info for international that would pertain to debit cards for the credit union?
You can do a travel alert with us, with the credit union, if you're going to travel. That way you can let us know what countries you're going to be in during what dates. Because typically, international transactions will be flagged as fraud, so your card may get blocked, and then you don't want to be stuck if we're trying to contact you and you're out of the country. So it is a good idea to let us know if you're going to be traveling internationally, so we can make that available on your card so it doesn't get blocked. But also, then if we see it, we're not going to think it's fraud. So that's on our end, that's kind of what we try to advise with it.
Yeah, one more question was asking about if we offer the tap technology on our cards, and we do. If you have an old credit card or debit card, check with us and see about getting an updated card, because they do have the tap technology available on those cards. One more question. How do you protect a prepaid gift card from being compromised?
Pretty much impossible. There is a phone number on the back of prepaid cards that you can call to report, but it is up to them and their policies on whether they can reimburse any fraudulent use. So first of all, again, going back to our scams, never, ever, ever pay in prepaid cards or gift cards whenever asked to. But if you're talking about just you want to buy a gift card for someone, this just happened to a detective here in our office. A lot of times when you grab the card to activate it in store, like a prepaid Visa or any type of gift card, you can activate it, they'll load the money on, and then the money is off of it within hours because people unfortunately steal the numbers off those cards and run PIN numbers in a computer to gain access to funds on the prepaid cards. It's a scam that is rampant and very difficult to counteract. You know, some people have some ideas of like grab a card that's not at the front of the stack, or ask the cashier to grab a card from behind the counter instead of one that's been sitting out, you know, readily available for people to mess with them. But gift cards are basically like cash that can, but it's worse because it can be stolen from, you know, remotely by someone who gains access to the number and PIN. So that's why in the scams where they ask to pay with prepaid cards, they say, oh, just send us the number on the back and the PIN, and then they can use it in, you know, any country at all, whether they're in the U.S. or any country outside of the U.S. So prepaid cards are just inherently not great. It's literally, it's safer to give somebody cash, or those cute little packs that you can buy at Christmas from the credit union.
Yes,
$2
exactly.
bill.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending tonight. Just a quick reminder or just a quick note that this recording will be emailed to you within the next couple of days. It is being recorded. It'll be sent to you. So if you have any further questions or you want to refer back to the material, it'll be emailed to you. And a huge virtual thank you to Lauren Fine, our own internal fraud specialist here at the Credit Union and Detective Board, was giving us her nights after the Super Bowl parade, still in uniform, fresh from the field. But please, again, thank you all for joining tonight, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.